Let's talk real quick about pagination. Very common operation that we might want to use is that we're dealing with lots and lots of information, right? A database is designed, right, to be able to manipulate millions and millions of records, right? But as humans, usually we only can consume just a fraction of that information at a time. Right, so anytime you're looking at through your SQL statements and the result set, you're never looking at more than maybe a couple hundred records at a time, right? Depending how zoomed out your screen might be, right? But it's always working. Whatever database you're looking at, whatever client you're using, SQL, your Workbench or whatever, right? It's only ever working with a small subset of the actual data. Okay, the database might be several terabytes large, right? But your whatever it copies from the disk onto the memory of the console, right? Of its running, it's only a fraction that you can then paginate through, right, and consume it time by over time. So in that sense, we oftentimes we want to be able to either jump forwards or backwards, or tell it how much information we want it to consume at every time, right? So we have a commands such as top and limit and whatnot, right, that allow us to specify how much information are we consuming at any one time. These are also very useful for implementing in pagination. When you're consuming either in user interface, oftentimes you're giving a page that has 10, 20, 50 elements, right, or records, and then you can ask for the next 20 and the next 50 and the next 100. Yes, it's a very common use case. So the way we can achieve this is through the use of the command top. Top allows you to specifically say how many records do you want exactly, or some percentage. I only want half of them, or some only the 10% of all the records. Whereas here, for instance, we can say, select the top 2 records from the persons, or if it's exactly 4 records, 50% is also 2 records. Now, different vendors use different syntax. For MySQL, typically use the limit operator. We can say, you can do a select statement, which might have hundreds of records that might come back, right? But you don't want to see more than 5 or 10 or 20 at a time. So limit 5 will give you the 5 records. Limit also allows you to specify exactly where to start, right? Limit by default, limit will say, well, give me the first 5, or you can say, well, start at 6 and give me the next 5, right? And that's how you can do pagination. You can just move the offset, right, and keep going. Now you need to be careful that depending on the vendor you're using, limit can get very, very expensive, right? And what do you do with the first 10,000 records? If you say that you want to start from record 10,000 and you want the next 100, how do I jump to the 10,000th record, right? Can I randomly jump to the 10,000 record and then read from there, or does it mean that I need to read all the 10,000 records to get to there, right? So some vendors, it can become very, very expensive, as the data grows, to be able to jump so far ahead. In particular, Mongo, well, at least the last version, did not have a very good implementation of limit and skipping, right? They use a keyword called skip, and you can say, well, skip, if this is 1 million records, right, it's going to take a long time for it to get to the millionth record, right? Since it actually iterates of the records to get to that one record. So you have to be careful, which is fine when you have thousands of records, but when we're talking about huge amounts of records, then some of these implementations might not work very well, right? So you got to be careful. In Oracle, they use what is called RONUM, and RONUM is a mechanism that they keep track of the enumerated number of the row. So they give a number to each row, right? Which is somewhat awkward, since we're kind of teaching the fact that we should never consider that rows have any particular ordering. But nevertheless, right, they do give it a keyword so that each row knows which number it is, right? And you can say, well, 5 or number, how many you have, right, on the result set. Or you can do pagination using row num as well. Say between row number 1 and row number 5. Although when you start using it with order, right, it starts breaking down. Yes. Yeah. Right, exactly. That's what we're going to be talking about. Depending on the sorting, sorting breaks this. So you have to be careful on doing the row num, applying it in the right order, right? Right, or because of ordering, where you first do the sort and then you do the row number, or backwards, you do the row number and then you do the sorting, right? So depending on the ordering, you have to be careful. So let's take a look at about the problem of ordering, right? So for instance, you have row num here, where you have Clara, Smith, and whatnot, and the row num is 1 through 10, and then you do the row num of 1 through 5, and it's basically it's what you would expect, right? You have presumably this is ordered by first name: Clara, Deborah, Gertrude, Jeff, Keith, and the first 5 are what you would expect. Now, if you order by location, then obviously these change a little bit, right? Clara, Jeff, Gertrude. Do I have them the right order? Wait, but if we add order by, good. Notice that the ordering is different, right? The ordering is different. Clara, you get some 5 different folks. You have 5 different folks. Now you have Clara, Jeff, Gertrude, Marilyn, and Keith, right? I believe Marilyn was not in there, right? And the row numbers are all screwed up, right? They're not in the ordering that you would expect, that they were nicely ordered here, right? Right. So now if you ask for row numbers 1 through 5, you're not going to get the same ones that are in here. You would not get number 8, for instance. You would not get number 6, right? You would get a different subset, right? Yeah. So you get the wrong set of 5 folks, right? If you mix this the order by the row num, right? So to fix this, usually what we do is that we nest the queries in such a way that we are forcing the order that we want first before calculating the row that we care about. So here's the first selection of retrieving the folks with the last name of Smith. So we first select and then we order. So now we know that these are the ones we care about, right? And the particular order that we want. Now in the second query, we also want the row num, right? And then finally the last query. I think the last query, we don't need the last query. The second query is enough, right? Right. So this is how you would do it. You would use some nesting where you first retrieve the elements you want in the order that you want, and then the second query will keep track of the row nums. Right. Unfortunately, it's much more awkward using Oracle. It's not perhaps as clean as you might get with MySQL or with SQL Server. In MySQL, it's very easy. You just use limit with an offset first, and then the element and how many rows you want. Very trivial, the syntax, and as well in SQL Server as well.